Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to episode 101.
101.
All right. We're in a new era.
We are.
Oh,
We're
wow.
in the 100.
I feel like it.
Well, we're in the new year.
We are in the new year.
2022.
Here we are in 2022.
Of course, we're recording this before the new year. Maybe everything exploded. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe it wasn't Y2K.
Well, if that
maybe it was
happens, then no one is seeing
Y2K22.
22. So
And that was it.
No one's seen it.
Yeah.
Windows 11 has rolled out.
Has it?
Oh, has
Is
it?
it coming out in the beginning
John
of
was
the year?
installing it on his computer
Oh, it's
today
already-
in 2021.
That doesn't
Okay.
shock me. He's up on it.
So
My computer won't run it.
not strong enough. Huh?
I don't know. I don't know why it just said
won't do it.
this will not be able to upgrade to
Okay.
Windows 11.
All right.
It's
So-
their
Is it
way
a free upgrade?
It is, but it's they did that with Windows 10 too. They're just
Yeah.
trying to sell more computers.
Yes. So assuming that we made it into the new year,
We did.
assuming, which is a pretty good assumption because that's how it works.
Yeah, we're not very pessimistic. I'm
No,
assuming.
not
I'm
at all.
assuming.
If
we're
we
gonna
didn't
be-
make it, that means probably Jesus came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm tired. All those people that think
I like
that,
how excited we were at that idea of Jesus coming back. Yeah.
I was on something else. I was on something else.
I want to point out, Jesus, that I said it hopefully.
I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about all the
I'm
people.
gonna be like Fonzie when Jesus comes back. Hey.
Like I have to tell Jesus what I thought.
Yes, like he
He's like,
cares.
yeah, you said it optimistically,
Jesus
but
is
I know
like,
what was really
Ed,
going on.
I'm not paying attention. I have more important things to do. Please stop talking to me.
I was just gonna say all the people that often predict that the world's going to end on some of these significant moments like New Year's
Yeah.
or the strike of some kind of date. Those are the ones that I usually discount because
totally.
You know what I mean? Because I don't think that's how it's going to roll.
No.
But I could be wrong. I just don't think that's how Jesus is going to do it.
Yeah.
But
That may be the way he surprises you.
that's right. That'll be my thief in the night
That'll
moment.
be your thing.
I won't-
They did predict it.
Got me right on the strike of midnight.
Oh, Jesus.
Figured it out.
But I won't be disappointed.
No.
Or maybe all these people have figured it out, and Jesus keeps going, well, I can't let them be right. So
Well,
I'm not coming
maybe
back
so.
now. I'm changing it. I'm going to the next
If
one.
all you bozos would quit
Yeah,
predicting
stop
it.
predicting it, because Jesus...
He's like, okay.
Jesus is just a contrarian. Every time you do it, he's like, I'm not coming back when you said I'm coming back. I was coming back on Tuesday, but now I'm not.
That
gonna
makes
sit
me,
right here.
That makes me like him more.
Me too. I was going to say that.
like what I would do.
Yeah.
Not doing it. Not coming back now.
Because if Jesus is just like you, he's awesome.
Oh, well, no. Jesus don't need to be like me. No.
Okay. So what?
Someone's going to put us on some kind of heresy watch out there. Some YouTube person's going to be scratching these together. Can you trust?
I already know who that is.
Well, I was just going to say that we're already on there. If
Yeah.
that's the if that's the case, we're there.
False teachers.
We are. That's been said to me before.
Yes.
So what I was going to ask you is New Year's, and here we are. Are you a type of person that are into resolutions? And if so, how do you feel about them? You ever done one that lasted? And
I'm assuming you mean New Year's resolutions.
yeah, New Year's resolution.
Because I am a person who is making minute-by-minute resolutions.
Well, of
and
course we all
my
are.
wife, my
Yes.
wife is very upset because I tend to stick to a lot of them, and
Oh.
about every 2 weeks I'll go, now we're doing this.
Oh, so that last 2 weeks. You said.
No, they're just brand new. I mean, it's completely.
He's got a pile of them.
Oh, they're just up there, and I'm just doing them all the time, and I like new things. So
Huh. That's just-
eventually, the old ones must go by the wayside.
They have to.
But
You
it's just
can't
the way
do that
You can't
many.
keep piling them up.
They're revisions.
Yeah, revisions.
They're
Yeah, that's a good
revisions.
way to say it. So.
So you are a resolutions person. I
Oh
guess.
yeah, I'm all about remember we read that book we were just talking about on the last podcast.
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
Yep, me too.
And I realized a lot of the things that were in that book were the ways I approach making habits. I had never formalized them, but I go, oh, that makes sense because that's my nature. I am very much in good and bad ways. I have. And all of us have habits. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a thing. But I'm very much about the way I make changes, I have to schedule it. I have to I have to make a routine around it. If I don't make a routine, it won't ever happen. And so, yeah, I have lots of it. But I tend to not make them at New Year's. Maybe that's contrarian of me.
I think so.
It feels like everyone else is. But all of it for me is whenever, the inspiration strikes. I hear of a good idea. Right now, I guess at the point this airs, it's been over 13, 14 months since I made the decision I wasn't going to eat meat anymore. I eat it once a month. And that decision was made.
So that's not a really. I don't eat it anymore.
That's one of those revisions.
I know,
I will kill you on this day.
Oh, I don't care about
I
killing
think he's
animals.
doing it for that
I
reason.
ain't doing anything for killing animals.
Care about the thing.
No, it has nothing to do with that. So, but those are the assumptions people make. People like to make assumptions, and so one of the, but that decision was just made in a day. Like it wasn't like, oh, I really need to think this out, which is probably a bad way to approach things. But I tend to just go, well, if that's a good idea, let's just do it and let's make it happen. And because I'll come to my wife and go, oh, we're just going to move all the money over here now. That's been one thing that I've had to go, oh, well, that's a better. Let's just move it all over there.
Wow.
I have to slow down. On
We're also sorry for Miss Jennifer.
Yeah, she's
Jennifer's
like, so
got a
now
hard
I've got to
life.
have a new password for new things. Yeah, you got
You
it.
use the same password 1 2 3 4.
Yeah, it's the same. So,
Now all your money's gone.
and then it just disappeared. Yeah,
It just gave away your password.
How did they know?
So Ed, are you doing any resolutions this year?
I don't know if I'll do any resolutions or not. If y'all don't know, we're recording this before the new year. I do love the new year, and I love the new beginning. And it is typically around here, the end of the year, once we get past Christmas, that last week is really, really slow at work. It's my favorite work week of the year because often I'm one of the only people working. And it's very reflective for me. I love that week. I often can sort of think through what's happened, so I like that part of it. Whether there will come anything out of it that I go, you know what, I need to change this personally. I used to change lots of things about the church during that time of, you know what we need to do.
Yeah.
And then I'd come back and tell everybody things. I don't do
Maybe
that.
that's where I get it from. Well, we're done with that now. We're doing this now. Oh, great. Now we got to...
Jason's been around long enough that I used to do things like that. I do that, and I don't do that anymore.
This actually, you mentioned that this this part of the first week of the year marks my 25th year at Community Christian.
Oh, there you go.
I came to Community Christian the first Sunday of
We applauded
1996.
you being here for 25 years more than we did Jesus returning.
And he said we, and I was the only one that applauded.
Anyway.
I said yay with a little bit more enthusiasm.
Yeah. It was January 1997, and I was it made me think of that because you said after 25 years of working at this church, he is absolutely right. We have many times come into the office and Ed goes, well, fellas, we're blowing the thing up, and we're going to do this for a while.
I've had a chance to think about some things.
Yes. And then about the time we get that blow up put together,
I'll go,
well,
wait
blowing
a second,
this-
guys.
lighten the fuse, and that's going to blow up. Stick a dynamite on that.
Yeah, so I don't do that anymore, thank goodness.
That's
So
right.
we're lots of resolutions people. We're just not always very resolute.
Just
We're very fluid.
I am a quick changer.
we
Yeah.
love change.
That is true. That's true for me too. But that's probably where I go.
So I do reflect, and I will probably make some decisions about myself during this time and things that I want to change, but I don't really direct the church that way anymore, thank goodness.
Yes. Thanks.
What about you, Jason? You a resolution guy?
You know, I got that little contrarian in me too. I don't like to do things the way everybody else does them. So, you know, if I'm going to change something, I'll change it in March or something like that, which is what I did. Actually, last March, I changed my diet as well. I went to like a extremely low carb diet, lost a bunch of weight, and you know, tried to get a little bit healthier, things like that. But yeah, I'm not honestly a New Year's resolution kind of guy.
Have you had any New Year's resolutions ever that you go, oh, or like any changes that you were like, oh, that happened because of a New Year's resolution?
Nothing that I can point to that I would have said in the moment, that's a New Year's resolution. There are some things that I started at the beginning of a year that wound up sticking, but they were more of like, I think about, you know, I started a new way of doing discipleship with a bunch of men around here.
Oh, sure,
in the
yeah.
new year
Yeah.
in 21. And that year had a huge impact
Sure.
on me in the way that I follow Jesus. And so, but it wasn't me saying I'm going to do a resolution. It was actually entering into a community
Right.
that decided, well, we're going to start something new. And that proved to be big influential in my life.
I'll say this. I didn't have an answer, and then I thought of one while you were saying
Okay.
it. I don't remember if this was a resolution or not, but it did start. I grew a beard This I guess not this beard. You know how that all works. The skin cells. It's always a new beard. It's always
We get
changing.
that.
Fluid,
we get that.
Fluid life.
But you started the process.
I
of
did
beard
on
growing.
New Year's Day. I hadn't shaved for 3 weeks, and I had a little bit of stubble. And
I
my wife and you both were like, "You should try growing a beard." My wife had always wanted me to grow a beard, and I said, "I don't know if I could." And I already at that point had more stubble than anyone else in my family, including my wife.
I am. I am not capable of growing that, and I remember that day, and I just said to you, "Man, I admire that. You should go for it and just see what comes out of it."
So it wasn't really a resolution. I just said, "Okay, I'll try," and then I was able to grow a beard. Now my wife's like, "You can't ever shave your beard." Everyone always wants when my first daughter, it's not my youngest daughter, I always have to, it's a weird thing to think, but my first daughter is my youngest daughter. When she was really little, everyone wanted me to shave it for one of those reaction videos. I don't know if you've seen the videos where dads shave their beards and the babies don't recognize them.
I've
and
seen those.
It freaks the kid out, which I'm always like, I've never understood that trend. I know parents who do that.
Why is that entertaining?
Yeah, why is your goal to make your child cry? I know parents who do that, like this whole... Whatever, now I'm probably causing up things. But at this point, people are doing all these Elf on the Shelf things. And I saw a mom who cut holes in their son's favorite shirt from the Elf on the Shelf and was like, he didn't think it was very funny. I said, I'm going to come in your house and cut up your... Why is that entertaining as a parent? Let me ruin my 13-year-old's day.
You know, we had that happen, now that you mention it. One of my daughters had that experience. I didn't get it on film because I wasn't, trying to be
You weren't trying to.
Yeah, so... My wife actually did her hair differently, and one of our daughters was in the crib
when they were a baby.
When they were really small, in the crib, and she was taking a nap. Mom went out, got her hair done. It was a completely different color, different. My wife has curly hair. They straightened it. I mean, it looked completely different. And she said, "Oh, she's still asleep." I'm like, "Yeah, you can go in and get her up. It's time for her nap and be over." And she walks in the room. And my daughter stands up in the crib and just loses it because she heard her voice. She heard the voice coming out of this
it's
face.
A stranger's face.
Yeah, and we felt horrible for our kid because we realized, this was traumatic for her little brain.
Her little brain was like, I can't trust this person.
But if I was like most parents, I would have filmed it and put it online and thought it was great. But,
This is
I didn't think it was
Look
great.
at this idiot.
Traumatized my child.
You're such a baby.
Then on their 16th birthday, I rented a casket. I acted like I was dead.
That's right.
And you just gave some people an idea.
I know.
So
I'm doing it.
I'm going to do that.
This is what I feel like when you go out. I'm not here anymore. Love me now.
Hashtag mom life.
That's actually probably already been done.
I'm sure. Google it.
Unfortunately. So, all right. So that's how we feel. About
everyone who's watching this goes, I don't like that podcast anymore. They made fun of what I did with my Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah.
My casket at my kid's
I
birthday party. I thought it was great.
That parent quit listening a long time ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So here we go. All right. Time for listener questions.
Listener questions. We get
Yay.
questions.
Thank you for questions.
We had 2 people clap on that one. None for Jesus.
None for Jesus. This question was
I'm
sent.
thankful Jesus doesn't keep score like Nathan does.
All I'm going to say is, maybe you're wrong about that.
He's hard, man. So, and by the way, I hadn't mentioned this for a while. You can send us a question. The link is right here on the page. If you're listening to this podcast, it's right below the play button right there in the description. If you're watching it on YouTube, it's right below this video. There's a link right there. It says send us a question. And we answer almost everything gets sent to us.
Or you can email us.
You can email us, help@community-christian.net,
That'll get it.
or anything at
It'll
community-christian.net.
get to somebody.
Yeah, it'll come to one of us.
Walk
So,
up to us on the street. Say, can you answer this on the podcast?
and yeah, then we won't answer it right then.
No,
We'll answer it on
what's
the
that
podcast.
one? Watch the podcast.
So, all right, today we have a question.
That's
And
how I approach all questions, by the way.
is it?
If my wife asks me a question, I say, you have to ask me on the podcast.
I'm going to answer that on the
Are
podcast.
you coming home for lunch tomorrow? Ask the podcast.
Which is why you and your wife don't talk much, because she never listens to this.
We don't. I just come home and say, now we're all vegan.
And our money went somewhere.
And we sent our money away. It's in Haiti. Got to go find it.
Okay, so here's the question. Ready? What are your thoughts on Catholicism? And the main question is, are Catholics Christian? We are not Catholic, so I guess that...
I think our thoughts on Catholicism probably aren't as important, being that we are not Catholic.
Probably
but,
not.
Yeah. I would say this to answer the second part of the question. Any person who not only claims that Jesus is Lord of their life, but lives as a disciple of Jesus, with Jesus being Lord of their life, saying, "I'm surrender everything to Jesus. I want to follow Jesus and live in His new community, known as the church." That person is a Christian. And so, are there Catholics who are Christians? Absolutely. Are there people who would say, "I am Catholic," but are not following Jesus? Absolutely. Just like there are people who attend Community Christian Church and would call themselves Christians, but are not following Jesus.
That's
So
right.
these kind of questions to me, anytime you're trying to label things, they become very much who's in, who's out.
That's right.
I consider Catholics brothers and sisters in Christ. So if that's the question, yes. I believe, once again, Catholics who are trying to follow Jesus and trying to bring about His kingdom on earth through all the things that we would consider a Christian.
Yep.
Just because you're a Catholic, I would not consider you not a brother or sister.
Yeah, I thought this would be a good to get at this question. I just thought it'd be a good conversation for us to have. Is what is a Christian? Because that really is what it comes down to, and I think you sort of began to sum that up in what you were saying there, Nathan. Because what does make someone a quote unquote? Because Christian is just a title. I mean, let's be honest. In the scriptures, that word that we now use as Christian was not a label or a compliment. It was
only
actually
mentioned twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah,
And I don't think it's a thing that they ever use for themselves.
No,
No,
the
no.
church. It's always. It was at Antioch that they were called Christians, and
Yep.
it was a derogatory term.
It
for them
was.
at that
There is a
point.
place where he writes to all the Christian churches or something like that, but it's a way later kind of thing. I don't think anybody was. They call themselves followers of the way. Disciple is really the word that gets used a lot.
It's a word that Jesus would have used.
That's
for
my
right.
them.
disciples, my followers. That
Brothers
kind
and
of stuff.
sisters are often referred to as it.
Yep.
Certainly the church, they would refer to each other as the church.
Yep. I think what people are asking when they ask this question is, what boil it down. What makes a person a Christian?
Well, and I find a lot of times, again, when we have only a question, it's the thing with text and you can't have a conversation, I don't know if the person is trying to figure out, so if they are Christian, why are we separate? Why was
Yeah, I
there,
think that's important.
and if they're Christian and Baptists are Christians and we're Christians and the Episcopals are Christians, then why aren't we all working together? Well, that's a really, really good, but it's a different question than are they Christian? Well, there are people in all of those things that.
Well, and often what I think people, and I would say this, in the conversations I've had, once again, because I've had these face-to-face with people, especially younger people, they're asking, are Catholics going to heaven?
Yes.
Because when most people are asking me, is this person a Christian, or are these people saved, the language they're trying to get to is that person going to heaven or hell, which was not Jesus' idea of what made a person a Christian or not a Christian, or a disciple, or whatever label we want to use. That was not his primary motivation in having conversations with people about following him. And so I think that gets distracted away from the answer I often give to people is, we will be surprised at who is in heaven and who is in hell.
Oh yeah.
There will be people I'd go, I didn't think you'd make
Well, there's one way to
people that I thought would, that
I didn't mean to distract because I think the way you were going about, let's talk about what it takes to make a Christian, that's a really good, important topic that can come out of this.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe because it's been on my mind, I just had a conversation that falls under what I call watchdog Christianity, that there's some people that really believe all doctrine, we all have to line up, and if you don't line up with these exact things I believe, then you aren't, if you and I don't agree, then we can't both be Christian.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
And there's a whole branch, and I was in that branch of Christianity for a while where everything has to line up, and if it's not, then there's something.
We got to separate.
We got to separate, and we can't call each other brother.
Yep.
All those things. That's a different thing that could also be a part of this. I don't know for sure what behind this.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that all of us have had, this is often the frustration when you're working with other believers to try and accomplish something is I've been in those kind of meetings before where you're working with other people and someone goes, hey, what if we did this for the community? Or hey, what if we did this? And it almost becomes, I mean, this may sound too negative, it almost becomes a very political thing. Like, hey, we need to tack this onto that so that, because my church really cares about this, and then it's, oh, we need to tack this and go, okay, well, we're not trying to do everything, we're trying to do this, but it becomes this like, well, because we're from this denomination, or we have this thing, or we're in this movement, or this branch, and it really holds us up from doing what Jesus called us to do at times when we get really focused on things that, when you get far enough back, you go, that really is minutia. It really is a smaller issue. It's not a core issue like, is Jesus the Son of God, and should he be king of our lives? That's a big issue.
Well,
if a person would say, and that's what John, the Apostle John would say is, anyone who can't claim Jesus as Christ, they are the ones who are not in. But if someone's claiming Jesus as Christ and they are living with him as Christ, that's a brother or sister. And it becomes, we get ourselves really worked up on the wrong kind of stuff.
There are obviously things on the watchdog side that if somebody said to me, well, the Catholics believe this, do you agree with that?
No.
There are some things I don't agree with, and that's the reason I choose not to worship at a Catholic church.
Right.
Would I work with them on things, and do I expect to see, that one issue, do I expect it keeps them from fellowshipping with the Father through Jesus? I don't.
Right.
And so when somebody, and I know of people who, I used to go to church with who now go to Catholic churches, I don't have the thought of those people are in some kind of danger.
No.
So maybe I should. I don't know. That's where my head went to on this. I do think there are Christians in the Catholic Church. I don't think everybody in the Catholic Church is. I don't think every doctrine they teach is right. But I don't think it's somehow. I don't think.
But I'd say that about any.
Oh yeah, there
that
are probably things that if it came right down to it, that I hear people say at Community Christian, I go, I wouldn't have said it.
But
that
I
way.
still call them brother and sister.
Absolutely.
And we're still in small group together. I'm just saying this, but I mean, we've had those conversations, and I've never once said, there are people who, and I mean, you know this, you may think this about us, that we believe some wacky things, but we still worship with people, and we're still having those. And I think to the point that you're trying to make here, that I think is huge, is that ultimately, I'm not in fear of a person necessarily being in danger, because I ultimately believe that what Jesus called me to is a life of loving him and loving other people who are not just in my community, but people outside, loving my neighbor as myself, loving every person I come in contact with. And a person who says my chief goal in life is following Jesus and following him to love God and love people, I go, okay, I think that person's on the right track. And I don't have to get into the minutiae on what do you believe about all these specific doctrines, because I also think at the same time, there are things, and we would say this, that we have had the wrong focus at times. That we have gone, oh, you know what? We need, because I know all three of us would say there are sermons we have preached before that if you gave me that script today, I'd go, I'm going to have to change some of this.
I would not say it that way.
Me too.
Anymore.
I'm going to have to change it because I'm not even sure I believe that anymore. Does that mean that when I preached that, I was a false teacher that was leading people away from Jesus? I don't believe so. No. I believe that I've learned.
Well,
and that I've grown.
How many of us believe the exact same things we believed at 20? And at 30, now I'm getting past you. But it's like me, saying, do I still live life the way I did as a middle schooler? Well, no, because I was an idiot back then.
Right.
But I take idiocy as part of me.
That's right.
and I'll have it with me, and I'm hopefully, as I grow and I mature and as I learn, because hopefully you're learning, my beliefs, my viewpoints, at the core stay the same, but those tangential stuff that's all around it that gets formed, and hopefully I'm being formed into the image of Christ.
Right. And
as I change.
If I'm following Jesus with his people, and those are my core things, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to try to do what he says. It means I'm studying his word. All the things that I have wrong, the community of people around me will help me get right. Mm-hmm. And if I'm trying to live in that submission, everything I have wrong will be okay. But and this is where, and this was me for a while. So I'm not trying to throw stones at
Me too.
anybody of that. What it means to be a Christian is there are 12 things, or 20 things, or 50 things, or 2 things, and those 2 things have to be absolutely perfect. You know, and if I believe them, well, check, I'm good. No matter what else is wrong in my life, I don't think it's as cut and dry as that.
Yeah, well, it goes back to a discussion we had I remember just a few weeks ago on this podcast about someone asked a question. I can't remember the question, but I do remember our discussion turned to, it all comes down to what you think God is like.
Yeah.
And if the answer to your question paints God as a God who's a gotcha God,
Right.
who's there was that one thing that you messed up, and everything else you did okay on, but here's the one thing, and so that's it.
That's right.
I got you. And he's just looking for the one thing. You've painted a picture of God that certainly Jesus wasn't painting.
Right.
He didn't live that out, and I believe the whole of Scripture doesn't give us. And so I think a lot of times that's where these questions originate is, like you said, I've got a checklist, and I got to check them all off. If I miss one, God's going to get me.
And on the other side is true. I know people that live this way. I got the one important one right, and I can do whatever I want in this other area, but I got this one right, and when it comes time, I got God in the bind.
Yeah.
I mean, he may not be a gotcha God, but I got him.
Yeah.
He said, all you got to do is do this, and I said that prayer, and I
Pray the
got
prayer.
baptized, and I did this thing, and the rest of my life is over here. But this one thing I got right. I just that's not the way. That's not the way Jesus describes God.
Well, and it's not the end goal of what Jesus was inviting us into. Jesus was inviting us into a loving relationship with Him. And in that relationship is this other community of other people who love Jesus. And so if the end goal is we're all trying to love Jesus by loving one another, there are going to be things that we even... And I think about the book of Acts, where they would make what you might even call like doctrines or policies about stuff. Like I think about the very famous one in Acts 15, where they're having this Jerusalem council about should people who weren't Jewish be circumcised or not. And they come out of that by saying, no, they don't have to, but here's some things that all of them should do. And he lists some things in there. And so he basically goes, you don't have to get circumcised. And then Paul goes, Timothy, we're going to have to circumcise you.
Yeah.
And Timothy's like, what?
And then Titus is standing on the other side. And he goes, "Not you, Titus." And Timothy's like, "What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I want the Titus plan."
Yeah, it's like,
What
it's going to have to
Titus
happen.
plan?
He's like, what? Didn't we just have the conversation? And then in other places, he's like, you don't have to worry about the food. And then some places, like, no, you do got to worry about the food. And it's this whole thing where it goes, I can see how in a very modern, rationalistic way, we go, you need to tell me what is good for all time, at all times, and that's a doctrine I'm going to believe forever. When what Paul is saying is, we're all trying to help people love Jesus, and there are these little incidental things that kind of get in the way of that. So if I need to minimize that here, I'm going to minimize that here. If I need to maximize this here, I'm going to maximize. But the end goal of everything is that we would be people who fully love Jesus by loving the people that are around us. And so that's why, and I think any Christian in any church has to hold kind of loosely. There are going to be things that as I pursue Jesus, I'm going to figure out maybe I had a focus on this other thing in the wrong direction, and I'm going to be open to what Jesus says through the scriptures to reveal that this is who He is. And we all do that. Every person does that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. That doesn't mean that then I have to, every person I interact with, I have to go, if we're going to be brothers and sisters, you've got to pass this test.
Yeah. You're going to have a very small community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think it's tough. And I'm not saying that this person...
I don't know what they meant by the question.
Yeah.
So we've discussed several ways it could be answered. I do think that in the end, it's for a Christian, you are following Jesus. You put your trust in Jesus, which means I will do whatever Jesus asks me to do because I trust Him. And my understanding of that grows over time. So then once you look back, at the point I've been following now for a long, long time, that I look back and there were things I wasn't doing in the beginning that I now know I should have been doing. I don't think at that point I was somehow lost because I didn't understand at that point. But my intent has been for the whole 40 some odd years that my feet are pointed toward Jesus, and I'm trying to follow him. And I'm confident in another 10, 15 years, if the Lord allows me to live that long, that there will be things I look back and go, when I was 62, I didn't have this figured out. And doesn't mean I was lost, but my feet are pointed toward them. I think there are people that are doing that same thing that are in Catholic churches because the intent. And I think there are people that aren't doing that in all kinds of churches as well.
Yeah.
We just have to get really clear on, I know it makes it confusing, and it may be that this person is, we have people in our church that grew up, and I had this conversation with lots of people, they grew up Catholic, and they're coming to our church, and they're growing, and their parents are very worried about them.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they are Christian.
Right.
Because they're, in one of their teachings is to do with communion, and you can only receive communion, and those kind of things. I would try my best not to argue about those things if I could. I don't know where that comes from either. That's a whole other thing of not being able to answer in this with the whole context of it.
Yeah, but I'm like you. There's another side of that as well. I mean, there's people that, when I was the tradition I grew up in would have answered that question very differently than what they would look and say, no, those folks are outside of God's plan, and we need to go evangelize those people and get them into our community because they're in danger and all this kind of stuff, and would worry about their family members who went the other side, and so there's that way of thinking on both ends. So.
Well, and I think even in those contexts, if I do think, as long as this is what I think in my head, is that maybe this person isn't fully loving Jesus, that's a different conversation than you should stop being Catholic and be this, because as we've said, you could be coming to Community Christian Church and not fully love Jesus. And so that does not determine whether I love Jesus or not. And I should be having that conversation, and it should be easier to have that conversation with a Catholic brother or sister than it is with someone who doesn't even acknowledge Jesus.
Right.
That it should be easier to say, hey, let's talk about our faiths and let's see how you love Jesus. What is it you learn? Because there are things that I learn from Catholic theologians, from people who are in these things, and I go, oh, that's an emphasis on Jesus I never thought of before. And thank you for giving me a better picture of Jesus than I'd had before. And there are ways that we can do that if, once again, our goal is I want to love Jesus by loving other people better. So if I am worried that my brother or sister or my mother or father is, approach it from that standpoint of let's talk about what we love about Jesus, not where I think you're totally off and you need to come to my side of the fence.
I do, and maybe this is my watchdog heritage coming out, I do want to make sure people hear us say that we are not saying that anybody that goes to anything that has church next to its name is Christian.
Sure.
Yeah.
It really does come down to, are you following Jesus, not something some group of people decided and then they tacked Jesus onto it.
Right.
Am I following Jesus? Am I putting my faith in him to make me right with God? What his death on the cross did something that bridged the gap between me and God, that made peace between me and God, that became, the ransom between me and God so that we could have a relationship with me and God again. When I put my trust in that, I become a follower of Christ. We are not saying that every church, everything that has church tied to it.
Yeah.
And that all religions, I don't want anybody thinking that's what we're saying, because that's clearly not what we're saying.
The question you have to ask her then is when they say, I'm following which Jesus?
Yeah.
Because there are different versions of Jesus
That's right.
that are out there in some cults
That's right.
that crop up, and they are not, when we say Jesus, they're
That's
not
right.
meaning the same thing that we say when we say Jesus. So that's a good distinction to point out there. So, all right. That's a good place to end. So hopefully they got it all the way to
Hopefully
the
they
end.
didn't turn us off before we got to that. I should have probably said that earlier.
Got all the way to the end. But we were getting on some other issues.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, good. We finally land the plane there. So, all right. So we are off till next week. I don't know what's coming up next week. We will find out when we get there. I always like to give a preview, but I don't have a preview this week, so I'm just going to have to leave it there. Enjoy your new year. And if you have a resolution, hopefully you stick with it. Read the book Atomic Habits. That'll show you how to do it.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right. So we will see you right here next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.